All right, here we are. Episode 3 of Losing Our Minds. We I've put out 2 episodes, and it's been kind of cool, just the amount of like DMs or texts that we've gotten about people, you know, because we're just kind of being real and honest and whatever about the stuff we're going through. And so it's been cool, the amount of people that have reached out and found different whether it was talking about food and weight gain and stuff last week, or I don't even, what did we talk about on the first week? Change, that's right.
Yeah, you know what's funny is I've listened back. I know you don't listen back, but
I don't. I haven't listened to them at all. We recorded them, and that's the last I've experienced them.
Yeah, I listened back, and I think I'm very nasally.
Nasally?
Yeah, I'm like
it could just be the mic.
I'm like a country singer.
No, you're not. It could just be the mic. You know, we only have one mic that we're kind of bootstrapping this on.
There's some parts where I feel like I sound like I'm plugging my nose and talking.
I've never had that thought, but maybe everybody listening is like, good thing she's self-aware and recognizes it, because that's all I can think about. So we have decided that here soon, maybe the next episode, maybe not. We don't want to put too much pressure on, but we're going to start doing a video version of the podcast. So we're going to throw up a camera. So if you're the type, a few people have told us, you know, when they listen to podcasts, they go onto YouTube and watch the podcast. Yeah. And or at least have it playing in the background. They like to be able to look at the video if they want to. So we are going to do that.
Yes, we are. Next one or the one after.
Or something like that. So we've talked, just to start jumping into the subject of this episode, we talked, I think different episodes are going to have different vibes, right? So there's going to be some that are just more kind of fun, lighthearted, life updates, silly. Maybe we'll review the show we've been watching, those sorts of things. Yeah. And then some that are a little bit more, okay, we're going to talk about this particular subject, and maybe the subject's a little more serious, and we'll still, you know, have a good time in the middle of that, but talk about something semi-serious. Like last week we talked about the weight gain and food and all that sort of stuff. And so this week is a little bit more one of those where the overwhelming response from people has been positive towards transparency and us sharing kind of just realities of what we're experiencing and things like that. Right. And so in this one, you know, we've talked about the fact that we moved out to Colorado Springs, left my hometown, left the city that you would really...
so many great things have happened.
Yeah, kind of found yourself.
And El Paso, yeah, for sure. We were just there, yesterday?
Yeah, we were just there yesterday. We travel back to work here and there a little bit.
And it's so funny how, for me, I'm just so flooded with all of the good that has happened in my life in that city. So there's so much warmth there for me still. How did El Paso get brought up?
Because I was saying we've talked a lot about the fact that we moved to Colorado, and it's been a really it's been the most positive thing. Mm-hmm. Like, it's been really, really incredible. But there's been an aspect of this adventure over the last few months that's been a little bit unnerving, or a little just unnerving may not be the word, but just something we've been kind of figuring out. Kind of a new experience, really, for you, that you've been fighting something neither you or I have really ever experienced, which is kind of this, at moments, almost overwhelming feeling of anxiety and actual kind of panic attacks, anxiety attacks in certain moments and things. And that's been something we're kind of wrestling through figuring out, because it's something, because neither you or I had ever really experienced it, it's not been something we've given a lot of thought or energy to in the past, and maybe we've been a little bit dismissive of even.
Yeah, I think I've definitely been that way about dismissing anxiety, especially in the past growing up. I remember friends saying, oh, I'm feeling anxious or whatever, and you know, there's a part of me that's like, okay, get over it, you know. As sad as that is, because now I'm in a place where I'm feeling it on a level that I have never in my life experienced. I don't think you've ever experienced for yourself, but you're seeing it in me.
Which is a weird thing when, like, someone that you care about is experiencing something that you don't really know
too much about.
Yeah, you've never had firsthand experience. You don't know how to help. You don't know how to be helpful. You don't know how to...
But I think you're learning
Sure.
And I think so talking about the anxiety thing specifically, I mean, I had a tipping point.
Which is actually, in retrospect, a bit of a funny story. It wasn't funny. It wasn't funny. It's kind of funny for you too. It wasn't funny in the moment. It was very intense, but it's kind of funny.
No, I don't think it's funny at all.
Oh.
My
bad.
What do you think is funny?
The whole thing.
Oh no, because they said I was having a heart attack.
Okay, so let's start the story.
The heart attack part was funny.
So we're driving to go eat.
Is that what was happening?
Yeah.
We were going to Costco.
And Costco, like we were out, go eat, grab some groceries, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And you No. It reaches a tipping point of you having this pain.
No. So what happened was I had been up that entire night. I think this was maybe 2 months ago when this happened, and I had been really struggling sleeping, like really bad whenever we moved to Colorado. And I didn't know where it was from or why I'd get anxious at night or anything. And that night I had stayed up all night. I didn't go to bed until 6 a.m.
That's right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I could not fall asleep. I could not turn my mind off. I had no idea. I remember taking melatonin and it didn't work. Like, I was wide awake until 6 a.m. And about 2 a.m. I started getting chest pains on my left side. And it was chest pains that kind of shot down into my arm. And, but that wasn't the first time that's happened, though. It was kind of happening on and off for a couple weeks before that. But anyway, so I started having chest pains, and I realized because the week before we were in El Paso for work and I didn't have any chest pains while I was there.
Right.
And so I had noticed that it had just come back I guess that would be morning because it's 2 a.m. Anyways, I'm laying there and you're kind of like trying to ignore it, but it's happening.
I'm not trying to ignore it. You are.
Yes, I'm trying to ignore it.
I was asleep. I mean, I technically was ignoring it because I didn't know it was happening.
Yes. So then I Google my symptoms, of course, because everybody should do that. And it said that I was having a heart attack, which I'm like, haha, no, I'm not having a heart attack. I'm 25. But I'm like, okay, I'm not having a heart attack. Then another thing said it was an angina. Is that what it is called?
I have no clue, but you better hope that's right, because if it's not...
Look it up.
Angina? I don't even want to type that into Google, Ariel.
I'm so sorry, but I think that's what it's called. Angina, right?
Angina is a type of chest pain caused by reduced blood flow to the heart. Okay.
Thank you. See, I did my research.
And that is how it's pronounced as well. I'm looking it up here.
Mm-hmm.
Angina.
Yeah, angina.
Oh my goodness.
That's
a horrible name for chest pain. Actually, okay, go ahead.
No, what were you going to say?
No, it's probably too far.
Okay, yeah, let's not.
Because when you have one of the other words in your life, it can cause you serious chest pain. So it makes sense.
Okay, I'm done. We're ending it here. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, so I looked up angina, and I was thinking that could be a possibility too, like oxygen, not having enough oxygen or whatever. And
well, angina's blood flow, isn't it?
Yeah.
Regardless, you were worried about it.
Blood flow, and I think oxygen, and I could be wrong, I don't know. But I know up here in the altitude, I was like, oh, maybe I'm not getting enough oxygen. I don't know. So then I thought, oh, well, that must be it. So at about noon the next day, I fell asleep at 6, woke up at 10. I still had the chest pain, and then finally it was noon, and I was like, you know what, let me call a doctor. And right now with COVID, you can't get into the doctor directly. So I called the doctor, and they sent me to a triage nurse to basically talk about my symptoms.
To see if it was worth having you come in during COVID.
Yeah. So I'm talking to her about all of my symptoms, and then she got so weird on the phone, and that's when we were driving to Costco. She got so weird. She asked me, are you driving? And I wasn't technically driving, but we were driving, so I was like, yes, I'm driving. And she goes, okay.
But you were in the passenger seat, which
right.
I don't know why you told her you were driving.
But because, I don't know, because we were driving. So she's like, okay, you need to pull over. And I'm like, okay. So then I still continue to talk about her or my symptoms. And at this point, my left arm is numb. Like, I really couldn't feel it. And so
and
you're
and to be clear, you are panicking.
Well,
that's why we called the doctor. You were in a panic at that point.
No, I was not. Grayson, honey, I love you. Okay, I would
classify as panic by that point.
No, I was feeling anxious. Then,
babe, I'm saying what I would call.
Oh,
okay.
This is not your story. Back down.
I'm getting angina. Okay. You're right.
Was not in panic yet.
Okay.
I was feeling anxious.
I
That's
apologize.
why I called. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're forgiven. I called the doctor. I was not totally there yet. Then the nurse told me that I needed to hang up the phone and call 911 and get to the ER immediately because I was having a heart attack.
And can I just say, this idiot of a triage nurse didn't even ask how old you were or anything.
She didn't ask how,
so she's diagnosing a 26-year-old with a heart attack.
But 26-year-olds can have heart attacks if they're on drugs.
It's extremely uncommon for a 26-year-old to have a heart attack. And now we understand there's so many more possible outcomes. This is the epitome of why people in the medical field are practicing medicine, because they don't have it figured out. It's crazy, now that we know all we know, that she reacted that extremely without even asking how old you were.
There were some questions she didn't ask. I wouldn't call her an idiot.
She's not an idiot. That was way too far.
Yeah,
she was a fool, though.
Oh, gosh, you're a bit...
It's pretty infuriating, though, because she sent you into a spiral without even asking basic questions.
Yeah, there were some basic questions that she did not ask, and she should have asked, looking back. So now I'm having a heart attack in the car in front of Costco.
So at this point, I realize I need to get you in somewhere.
Yeah, I full blown, like, I hung up with her, I looked at you, and I broke out crying. Like, I completely lost control.
Yeah.
Completely. I couldn't even think or reason, or there was no logic in my brain. I just started completely crying, like, yep, this is it, like, I'm gonna die. And then I called you. Kind of were like, let's think, like, logically here, Ariel. You've been having this now for almost 12 hours. Like, you're not having a heart attack.
You're not in the middle of a heart attack.
Yeah, you're not having a heart attack.
You're 26. You're healthy. You're not on any kind of drug. You're not even on any medications.
Right. So you're trying to help me think logically, which was not. I mean, I understand your heart, but that was just not.
I understand your heart, but you're a dummy.
That was not smart of you, because no woman wants logic when they're feeling like they're out of control. So,
honey, just calm down. Let's think about this. Is not the right thing to say.
No, it was not. Well, then you're like, let's call your mom, and then
because your mom's a nurse, to be clear.
Right, and so then my mom comes in the picture, and she's trying to be Miss Logic too, and I'm like, I've got two Mr. and Mrs. Logic over here, and like, you guys don't understand that I cannot comprehend logic at this point. I am gone.
Right,
I am
you're
so
full on in a panic attack.
Full on panic attack. I've never had anything like this happen to me before. It was so freaky. And then, my mom at one point...
I just snorted. Yeah, your mom.
She's so cute. At one point, she's like, I think she started kind of praying for me or something happened. And I'm like, I can't even handle prayer right now. No, like, stop. And so you were frustrating me. She was frustrating me. And then I told you... Well, my mom's like, get her to an urgent care so we can check her vitals. Because my mom was thinking, like, if it's anything, it could be, it could be blood clots or something blocking off, the bloodstream to her heart. Okay,
right.
So she's like, let's check on that. And so...
so I find an urgent care to go to, but it's about 25 minutes away.
It's 20. So I'm sitting in the car that was the longest 20 minutes of my entire life. I couldn't even handle it. anymore. I remember looking down at your GPS. My mom is on speakerphone. You're in the car. You guys are trying to help me calm down. It is not working. I remember looking at GPS and there were 13 miles left. And that's when I was like, pull over. And I told you to pull over the car and you're just like, what?
I'm on the freeway. We were on the freeway. I'm like, where do you want me to pull over?
You pull over, and I get out and I start running.
I get off the road and I get into a big parking lot.
And I still have my mom in my hand on speakerphone. And I'm like, she can hear this whole thing, like, pull over the car. I get out, I start running. It was so hot in the car. I felt like...
It was not, by the way, because this was still in the cold months.
Yeah,
it was probably like 50 degrees outside.
And yeah, it was 50 degrees outside. And honestly, it felt so good outside. 50 degrees had never felt so good. I remember jumping out of the car and just feeling like, the air.
By the way, if you're a guy, I don't know if there's a more helpless feeling than sitting in the car, watching your wife run around a parking lot on the phone with her mother, freaking out. That's
oh my gosh, okay, I understand.
That's why looking
think
back,
it's like, oh, this is funny.
I mean, it's not funny, like just like so out of the, like, so was such a crazy experience that it's almost like, what can you do except laugh about it at this point?
At this point, okay, yes, I can
so to move us through what happened, we get to the urgent care. Wait, actually, I want to say something, by the way. Between the parking lot and the urgent care was another 10 minutes. And your mom got you to do something that I didn't know was a real thing. I thought was just something that happens in cartoons, where she made you get a paper bag and start, breathing in and out of the paper bag. I didn't know that was a real thing. Well, now I know that's very normal.
Do you know what's hilarious is I was telling my cousin about this recently, and she's in nursing school, and she straight up said, did you brown bag it? Like, she knew exactly what it was.
The problem is it wasn't a brown bag. It was the Lord's chicken bag. It was a Chick-fil-A bag, which I thought solved all problems, but it didn't work. It didn't solve the problem.
It did calm me down. It got me the 13 miles. It really did.
Sure.
I think I would have passed.
I just like that it was a Chick-fil-A bag.
It was a Chick-fil-A, man. He saves
the Lord's chicken coming through.
He saves your stomach and your hyperventilation.
Right.
But anyway, so
we get to the urgent care. We get you inside. They take all your vitals,
and I'm good.
Yeah. Can we talk briefly about the male nurse that was taking all of your vitals and you began oversharing? She begins, this young guy, he's in his early 20s.
Yeah.
Probably younger than us, taking your vitals.
You're sitting in the corner, he's taking my vitals, and I'm just like,
and
I'm on my period.
Well, he asked you, because, as a female, that matters. He asked you, is it your time of the month? Yes, and not only did you tell him yes.
Oh, I gave him all the details.
You let him know it was a very heavy flow day.
Okay, honey.
That's the funniest thing. And I gotta give this man credit. He didn't bat an eye.
Sweet.
The man didn't bat an eye, Ariel. He's just like, okay.
Yes, he was.
And then goes typing it into his keyboard.
He was so sweet. He calmed me down. Honestly, he was really sweet. And you were in the corner like, oh my word,
just laughing. It's hilarious.
Wife. And then he walked out and I go, I think I overshared. And you were like, yeah. And then I was just like, who cares? He's a nurse. He knows everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so, anyway, so then all of my vitals ended up being good. And honestly, we think everything kind of goes back to like anxiety attacks, plus I'm anemic.
Well, specifically the chest and arm pain you were having, yes. You are anemic, which means you're low in iron.
Right.
You had not been taking your iron pills. You had also not been hydrating super well. Mm-hmm. And the nurse practitioner walked us through it. I can't remember the specifics, but basically in altitude, whatever happens to your blood cells at high altitude that you're not accustomed to causes your body not to move nutrients or oxygen or whatever as efficiently, mm-hmm. which can kind of exacerbate the issues of anemia. And so she felt like all the pain you were experiencing was directly related to your low iron count in conjunction with natural elevation sickness that happens. Right. We had been gone in El Paso for a while and come back up.
Yep.
So it was all of that created the pain.
Right.
The pain then exacerbated your your anxiety.
Right.
And so it was all just this big snowball for you in that moment.
Right. But that pain, it had never been that severe until that day. And that pain had been happening for weeks before.
But again, it all makes sense given elevation, low iron, you're not taking iron pills, you're bad at drinking water.
Right. All of it made sense. So anyways, I was able to calm down, and then we left. And
Can we just really quickly acknowledge, we go into that place busted looking, right? We're in like sweatpants, no hair done, nothing. Like we look busted.
Yeah, we look really
Ariel's tear-stained cheeks. We looked busted. It was like $150 to get in. And then the nurse practitioner gave us the money back, like pro bono, because I think we just looked at like these lost kids in that place. So she's like, yeah, we're giving them their $150 back.
So sweet. Honestly, best experience at an urgent care I've ever had.
Yeah.
Really. They were so wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyways, we left there and came home. We rested the rest of the day, and I remember that evening I broke out my journal and I started writing in it, and I wrote down that I had for the first time ever experienced not being in control, like literally
of your emotions and stuff.
Of the one thing that I should be able to control myself. I can control me. I can control my actions. I can control the way that I think and that I feel. I should be able to control these things. I could not control any of it. I was 100% out of control for the first time, and for the first time in my life, and knowing what that felt like and all the things. So that night was kind of my breaking point. I remember it was 11 p.m. at night, and I found a counselor online. I sent in my information on their website. They called me the next day. I scheduled an appointment for the next day. I immediately got into counseling. I immediately started breaking down the things I needed to do, because at this point, feeling anxious and anxiety levels and things like that, like, I had been feeling it for a little while. Sure, anemia plays a part in making it worse, and there's so many different levels for sure, but like that day was the first day where I had no control. I'm somebody who, yes, I feel things and I work off of emotion, sure, but when you throw logic at me, it's like, okay, yes, like, are you seriously batting your eyes at me? I do.
I would never bat my eyes at you.
Oh my goodness. I do though. Like when you walk through, it may take 10 minutes, but when we walk through something real logical, I usually circle back. It may take 24 hours.
24 hours is probably more accurate. You do. You're right.
Are you serious?
No, you're right. Mm-hmm. You're right. But I do think
I do like immediately feel something and then can react.
Yeah, you're able to logic through stuff.
You tend to push back sometimes on feeling and you want to throw like logic in there, and we have really good conversations, and then I do tend to circle back when the logic proceeds and rules over my feelings.
Right.
Okay, but I couldn't that day.
Right.
I look back and like you and my mom were so unbelievably logical. I didn't want you to be logical though, and your logic, I should have been able to calm down just based on that, but I was so far gone.
And I think what that event also then did was sort of open the floodgates for, like you said, you had been wrestling with just some anxiousness and things leading up to that, but that event almost triggered the intensity of that.
Right.
Even after that, for you to recognize, like for it to start happening more regularly, you've been now having anxiety around flying and other things that previously were non-issues for you.
Yeah.
And so what it did was trigger you to say, okay, I'm suddenly having this emotional, mental issue that we're not equipped to just solve, and isn't just here's the logic. You don't have to feel scared of flying because flying is safe. Like, that's not helpful with the way that...
Yeah. So now I'm at this point where I feel like, that breaking point happened, and it caused me to really do some practical things to help help my mind and help myself. So counseling was one of them.
Which is a funny thing, you know, counseling is something that's been a part of our life and marriage, like always. Like,
right.
We're kind of advocates of, you should go see a therapist and counselor,
no matter what,
even if you're not having these major issues.
Right.
Like, you don't, a counselor and therapist isn't just for somebody who's super broken. It's for people, because all people are kind of messed up.
Yeah,
you know?
And counseling's always been a funny one to me, because we went to premarital counseling, and then about year 2 we started going to counseling again, because you and I are very kind of strong in our ways and our opinions, and our second year of marriage we just realized we weren't fighting very properly. We wanted to learn how to fight right, basically.
Well, it was like fighting and not finding solution and resolution afterwards. It was just fighting to fight, and that's not productive. Obviously, I'm not a marriage expert, but if you look at what all the marriage experts say, if a marriage is fightless, if there's no fighting and conflict in a marriage, you're probably not going to ever get anywhere productive. Yeah, anyways, that's not what this podcast is about.
You want to wrestle stuff out.
But you decided that, hey, I'm fighting this thing that I don't know how to, we don't know how to combat this on our own. So it was like, okay, we're now going to take really practical steps. So one of them was to go to counseling.
Yeah, which counseling, all I was going to say was, for me, year 2 of marriage, counseling was like a heck no, we're not going to counseling. I was that. And
really?
Yeah, don't you remember? It was
no,
like this
I don't.
whole thing.
Oh,
you
wow.
were like, we're going to counseling. And I'm like, no.
Really?
Yes.
I don't remember that at all.
I struggled going to counseling. Because counseling is such a taboo thing. You go to counseling when your marriage is on the verge of divorce. Like, that is the last step.
Oh, that was never the way
I know that was never the way that you thought of counseling, but it was always the way I thought of counseling, because that's the way that society thinks of counseling.
That's broken.
And it is broken.
Yeah.
But think about even movies and how Hollywood, anytime counseling is in...
Anything movies in Hollywood tell you is probably a few steps away from right.
But if you think about...
Right, I hear you. What the culture
where
communicates.
Counseling comes into place in like a movie, or the things that we are constantly watching and surrounding ourselves with, it is the last step. So yes, it is broken, but that is where I was at, and it's not where you were at. Well, completely changed my ways on that. Huge advocate of counseling. I love it. I jumped in, found this woman here in Colorado Springs who's literally like, I think she's a godsend, because she is incredible. She specializes in anxiety specifically, and one thing I remember her saying, because it's so funny with anxiety for me, I've lived a good life. Like, sure, I've made stupid decisions, sure, people have done things, whatever, but I don't live in that. And so...
And you've not had what would be a standard definition of significant trauma in your life.
Right, exactly. So... that's always been funny to me, and even to go into counseling and say, look, I've lived a great life, like, so many things have been good. And one thing she says to me is, you can look at your life and say everything has been good, and your brain, there's nothing your brain says has been trauma, but your body, there's an event or whatever that could have taken place, and even though your mind says that's not trauma, it just is what it is, your body reacts to it differently and says it is trauma. So you have to connect the two. And so I am currently in counseling, working through all of the stuff, having really good conversations. I usually always leave there crying. And yeah, that was one of the practical things that I did after that event. But yeah, now flying has been really weird with flying for me lately, and just becoming so anxious on the planes when it does not make sense.
Right. But it's all a bit of a journey that you're on of just discovering, hey, there's some, I think we all end up in moments, I talked about for me with food the last episode, we all end up with things in life where we find ourselves in moments where we don't have control, or at least as much control as we want or have previously had.
Right.
And so you're on this journey in this particular area of your life of saying, okay, I'm going to do things to take control.
Right.
To not let my emotions be dictated, or my fears and things be dictated for me, but rather I dictate.
Right.
And you're on the journey of that, and so counseling is one. I know we're running out of time, but there were a couple of other things that have been big for you in that journey of taking control of this aspect of your life.
So there were a couple things I knew I needed to do practically every single day that I could implement into my life. Do I do them every single day? No, I fall short, of course. But when I do them, I always tend to have a good day. And so there are 5 things that I wrote down that I started implementing into my daily life in the morning. First things that I do, one of them is a good breakfast, having a really, really good breakfast, proteins, eggs, all the things. For me, my faith is huge. So Jesus time in the mornings. For me right now, I am finding a lot of Jesus through a Bob Goff book. So Jesus time is really important for me. Working out, getting active, whatever that looks like. Even for me, if I just go on a walk and I get outside for 45 minutes, I feel so much better. A cold shower.
You take the most scalding hot showers I've ever heard of.
I know, I tend to, but in the mornings I don't.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's incredible because
it wakes me up. I've read that there's some scientific.
Oh, well, I know a cold shower is good for you, but if you're married, sometimes you'll one person will shower and then the other one will hop in right afterwards. You'll leave the water running. If I hop in the shower,
married, you'll shower together. That's what everyone's thinking.
Well, yeah, but, do we want to get into that? Because,
no,
that's not
going,
as...
I'm just saying, because you're if you're married, then someone will shower, and then the other one will get out, and then you'll hop in. That happens a lot, but also when you're married, people do shower together.
They do, but, if you don't have a massive shower, that's not... Well, yes, when you're literally trying to get clean, that's not as awesome as... Anyways, moving on. If I get in after you, I literally will burn my flesh.
Oh, yeah. No, I tend to take very hot showers.
Right.
Yesterday, I took a shower so hot that my scalp was actually
Oh, my
burning.
gosh. that cannot be good for you.
I didn't... Well, I turned it...
If you've made it this far in the podcast, DM Ariel about how she needs to stop taking showers that give her...
In the morning, cold shower. And then my number 5 is getting completely ready for the day. So whatever that looks like, I just put on an outfit. I'm not in sweats, you know what I mean? So getting completely ready. So good breakfast, Jesus time, working out, getting active, cold shower, and getting ready completely for my day. So those 5 things, if I do those 5 things in the morning, I tend to have a very good day mentally, physically, and spiritually. And that is when, for me, I know, okay, this is a battle that I'm fighting, and these are the things that I'm fighting with. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and everything that you're describing there is taking control. Most of what you're describing there is taking control in the ways that you can take control.
Yeah.
Because there's probably a lot of you out there that are in environments. Maybe you're even a little younger and you're still living at home with parents or whatever, and you just don't have full control over every aspect of your life. Mm-hmm. And so when you begin feeling lost, whatever that may look like for you, when you're in a season of lostness, taking control of the things you can take control is oftentimes what you need to pull yourself out of that lostness. Jordan Peterson talks about cleaning your room. Mm-hmm. And it's not because cleaning a room is some magic thing, but it's rather that what can you control? Well, I can have a clean room.
Right.
For you, it's these 5 things, these things that you can do that allow you a sense of control over yourself and your faculties and your emotional states and all these things. Giving yourself some level of control over your life, even when other areas feel out of control, can be a pretty big deal.
Right. Totally. Yeah. Some other things I jotted down that are not a part of my daily life but do help. Number 1 is counseling. Number 2 is ice under my tongue. So I've noticed that whenever I start having chest pains or if I start feeling anxious about something, that if I throw some ice underneath my tongue, it distracts me. And so that's helped a lot.
People talk about suck on a lemon, things like that. Like extreme shocking your other senses that aren't your kind of internal sixth sense,
Right, exactly. So I do that. And then ultimately at the end of the day, my faith is what helps every single part of my life, my faith. And so I have a favorite verse, and just repeating it over and over and over and over and over, I've noticed calms my mind a lot. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, hopefully that's helpful to anybody that's experiencing some sorts of similar sorts. I mean, listen, people talk about it all the time, and they can't all be lying and faking it. So there's definitely people out there feeling these feelings of anxiety and...
Yeah, it's 100% real. My mind game has changed on that. It is a legit thing. And if you are not experiencing it, but you know someone who is experiencing it, the only thing I could say is to have patience and to embrace them. They don't want to hear your logic. They just want to feel loved.
Yeah, totally. Hopefully that's helpful to some of you. Thank you guys so much for listening, for checking out the podcast. This is episode 3. I don't know what we're going to title it. Something kind of anxious elephants.
Oh, okay.
Should be the title.
All right, let's do it.
Did you know that elephants get anxiety?
Do they?
Yeah, I was reading an article about that.
Really?
They're one of the more high anxiety animals, apparently.
Wow, I wonder.
I don't know if it's true. I don't remember where the article was, but, anxious elephants.
Anxious elephants, let's do it. All right, with that, thank you for listening to the Losing Our Minds podcast, where we recommend that you don't take any of our advice because, well, we're losing our minds.
True.
I'm Ariel.
I'm Grayson. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you on episode 4.
Adios.